Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It is time for another live stream. We have been on a roll with these live streams lately, and I'm so excited to have none other than our YouTube bestie, Stephanie from Wine and Chill here with us. Steph, how are
Hi,
you?
Grace. Good. How are you? Hi, everyone.
Good. You're always so like brightly dressed and stuff. I'm obsessed with all of your outfits. Where's this top
Thank you.
from?
Um, that is a good question. Where did I get this? I got this the other day. I'm gonna look at the tag afterwards and I'll tell you.
Uh,
But I
yeah,
actually don't
let us
remember.
know.
It's a good question.
So, you guys, if you're new to the channel, Stephanie is a former entertainment attorney. She's a recovering lawyer. She also did tech law and everything like that. So I really wanted to get her over here so we could talk about this lawsuit that was just filed against the production company behind Love is Blind. So, okay, where do we even start, Steph? What do you think? First of all, like really quickly, do you think the lawsuit, well, actually, can you summarize the lawsuit that's been
Yeah.
filed?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and pull up the claims and then we'll
Okay.
do like a quick summary and then we'll get into our thoughts. So Jeremy Hartwell, who was on Love is Blind season 2 for a whopping week, has decided to sue the production company as well as Netflix, as well as all of the production companies involved in the production of Love is Blind. And essentially, most of his claims are employment law claims. To summarize, and I think the most important thing outside of the actual claims are he is filing a class action lawsuit on behalf of everyone who's ever been a cast member of Love is Blind. However, it has not been confirmed whether any other cast members, former or current, have joined his lawsuit. So I think that is the most telling part of this. So essentially, he's suing the majority of claims 1 through 7 are all employment law claims. When you work for reality television, you are a contract worker. You are not classified as a full-time employee, and because we're a contract worker, you don't get full-time employee benefits, etc. Similar to when you do temp work in corporate, etc. So he's basically stating that because he was classified as a contract worker, he was underpaid. He was paid around $7 an hour when the minimum wage in California is $15. So that's what the most of this is about, and also claiming that he didn't get any rest periods, things like that. Hey, Kyrie, things like that, because when you are an employee, you are entitled to 15-minute breaks, 30-minute lunches, etc. But because technically the way reality TV is filmed, they're filming anywhere from 16 to 20 hours of a whole day. If you aggregate all of that, then essentially what Jeremy is stating in his lawsuit is like, okay, so I'm not actually getting adequately paid. And then the last claim, which is claim 8, which is unfair business practices. So we can go ahead and get into some thoughts because I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, here's my initial question. And you guys, if you have any questions for Stephanie, make sure to leave them in the chat. And also, don't forget to subscribe to her YouTube channel, Wine and Chill. I've got a link to it in the description box down below. She's so good. All things law, all things pop culture, and all things financing as well, too. She really gets into personal finance, which is awesome. So, my first question for you, Steph, is what happens if nobody else joins the class action lawsuit?
This is gonna fail, to be honest. He doesn't have a strong claim by himself. So, which is why he's filing as a class action to hopefully get any other castmates that have been there a longer tenure. Because remember, his statement from his rep was that he was on the show for 1 week. The statement from Kinetic Content, which is the production company behind Love is Blind, Married at First Sight, and a few other, I would say, like romantic reality TV shows, is that he was on the show less than 1 week. So they're not even giving him the full week. It doesn't particularly look good for him. And to Nikki's question, isn't this why you take your contract to an attorney? Which is a great point. Grace, you mind going to, or actually, I think I can control it now. We're learning how to, okay, perfect. The waivers. So essentially, this is an excerpt from one of the articles I was reading. Essentially, when you sign up for a reality TV show, you sign a contract and you also sign a slew of waivers stating, okay, if you break your arm, if you're jumping off a building doing nonsense, like that's on you. We're not going to reimburse you for any of that. That's none of our business, etc. And basically, these are very, I would say, like unilateral contract terms. And because these are regular people, the Production companies do not care. They will not negotiate with you 9 times out of 10. They will negotiate with like reality TV stars, like for example, if you're on like Love and Hip Hop maybe, or Teen Mom, things like that. Then you've been on like Farrah, she's been on it all these years. She could negotiate her contract terms. At this point, with all of like Love is Blind, Married at First Sight, they can take anybody off the street. So you can't actually
Yeah.
negotiate your contract essentially. You could ask, but
Mhm.
you're going to get a no and get told like, okay, Jeremy, you don't want to do it. That's fine. I'm going to go ask John.
Mhm. And in this like reality, and by the way, Desiree, we're just getting started. Don't worry, you didn't miss anything. We just did a little bit of a summary to start. So is it normal to outline how many hours people might work? Like, is it normal to work 20 hours a day, even if you're only there for a week in the reality world?
I would say in the reality world, yes, technically, because what he's classifying, his attorney is classifying as 20 hours of work. Part of that is probably technically filming while he's sleeping. Like he's not actually awake, which is a good point that Abu brings up. When you're a contract employee, aren't your wages stated in the contract before signing? Yes. And are you offered the same wages, rights, protections? So in the US, it's very different in the UK. And in other countries, specifically I brought the UK because I was just there for work. But in the US specifically, you get less rights when you're a contract employee. When you're a full-time employee, you have significantly more protections. However, overwhelmingly, the US is very much pro-employer, pro-corporation, and not necessarily pro-worker, which is why you're seeing a lot of people pushing back now, creating labor unions, etc. So with that, and about his wages, it was definitely listed in the contract he signed. Hey, every week, they usually do a weekly stipend, sorry, in reality TV. So every week you get a set amount. So all his attorney did was basically do the amount, so the math, and say like, okay, yeah, maybe you paid me $1,000 for the week, but actually I worked 5 days, it's 20 hours a day. I worked 100 hours. So that's how the attorney is essentially doing the math, saying like, oh no, this is $7 an hour.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's not a very strong case on his own, which I think is the most interesting part.
Well, especially hi Simply Sanchez and La Muñeca. Love is Blind, the producers behind them, they're getting sued by a former contestant who's like arguing a lot of stuff, which we're just getting into right now. We haven't really covered all the basis of it, but so you mentioned that like he's counting like being filmed while sleeping as working hours. Is that technically working hours or no?
I mean, they're filming you and they're using the footage. So I mean, technically, yeah. It's like a
Oh,
very odd thing, but
yeah.
basically why they classify people as a contract worker. If you're a full-time employee, you get benefits, but also because the way reality TV is set up, it's generally speaking week by week. Like The Bachelor is a good example. Every reality TV week, which sometimes it's not actually a week. What is The Biggest Loser gets called out about this a lot, where they do like the weekly weigh-ins. They're not actually weekly. They're like bi-weekly, sometimes 3 weeks between. But the way they put it on TV, they're saying weekly. They have everything set up that way. Yeah.
I
It's a
feel
lot of
so
smoke and mirrors.
scammed because I used to watch that religiously with my family, and then they
Same.
do their weigh-ins, and they'd be like, "Oh, and this week you lost like 20 pounds." I'm like, "How is that possible?" Like,
It's not a
what?
week. It's not a week.
Wow.
Yeah, my family and I used to watch it too. That show is highly problematic and a hot mess. Let's put that out
Yeah.
there. But yeah, I remember in high school, like we used to like my whole family would sit there and watch it.
Carrie, they don't really like film like extended scenes of them sleeping, but sometimes it'll be used as like B-roll footage. Like, oh, then they get up the next morning on their quest to find love again, like type of a deal.
Which is
So
why like it's a bit disingenuous for him to act like he's been working for 20 hours. But
exactly.
sorry,
You know,
Mari has the best question, which is who even is Jeremy Hartwell? That's the good
well,
question. This.
that's the question, right? The $1,000,000 question. Who is this man? At first I was like, is this the guy whose only like appearance on the show is saying that he's a virgin and then like he vanished? Because I would sue too if that was my only screen time, but it's not him.
To be honest, this is once you brought it up, I was like, oh, I haven't watched this show. So anything about the show, I will defer to you. I'm like, I understand what the premise is, but I haven't actually watched it.
You guys, Steph is just here for our legal Katie, no, she didn't block me. Kale actually loves my channel. No, but Everybody, Stephanie is our legal like BFF here on YouTube. Again, I've got a link to her Wine and Chill YouTube channel in the description box down below. Please make sure to go ahead, subscribe, and watch her. She's so good. So what happens next after all of these claims? Like, how would he prove the meal situation, the water, the alcohol? What's going on with all of that?
Yeah, I would say like those are easier to prove. But again, what's going to be interesting is he did not include his contract for obvious reasons, because his contract is going to state you're doing all these things, we're doing all these things. Most likely, Kinetic, who is the production company, as well as Netflix, is going to provide his contract, which will most likely make this go away. But however, so the first claim is failure to pay overtime wages. So if you work over 40 hours a week and you are an hourly employee, whether you're a contract or full-time, you are owed overtime wages unless you have signed an agreement stating that you're not getting that you're getting a monthly payment or etc. So it would likely be in his contract, depending on what he signed. What is going to be interesting, so we'll just go down a little bit, which is claim 5, failure to provide uninterrupted meal periods. That is required by federal law, as well as California law as well. So that will be easy to prove. They'll just pull up the footage of the week that he was there. Like, okay, did he get his 30-minute lunch break? And I believe, at least the way it's set up in New York, is every, I want to say 5 or 6 hours. Once you hit that amount, you have to be given at least 30 minutes for lunch. So if he's saying he works 16 hours in a day, then math is not my ministry. If you're on my channel, y'all know this. That would be at least 3 lunch breaks. So he would just then show like, hey, I didn't have any uninterrupted lunch. And uninterrupted in this sense would be that he's not being filmed while he's eating. So that would be interesting, because essentially reality TV would likely film you while you're eating. So his lawyer is arguing like, oh, well, if you're filming him, it's not uninterrupted. And this doesn't count because he's working. Any type of filming is technically work.
So how do contracts work typically in reality television? Because it is very complicated. I'm picturing Big Brother right now, how those people are filmed eating, showering, sleeping, whatever, smoking, like, so
yeah.
Do these contracts work the same way? Like, are these people entitled to uninterrupted, or is it something different for them?
You can essentially waive your rights to those things. Sorry, I have to cough. You can essentially waive your rights to those things. So if you are saying like reality TV, most likely it's in their contract.
See, that's what I was going to ask next.
It's in their contract that they get filmed 24 hours or however many hours a day it is.
Nico says lunch breaks will be hard halfway through conversation. Hang on, dude, I'm on a break. See,
exactly,
it's so
which is the practical matter of it. And so most likely, like a lot of these claims, like if we were to read through them, failure to pay overtime wages, failure to pay minimum wages, because he's saying the aggregate amount is less than $15 an hour, which is the state minimum wage in California. Liquidated damages for failure to pay minimum wages. In the contract, they were liquidated damages are if you break the contract, then you have to pay a certain amount. So it's automatic. And basically, it's an easier way to avoid litigation. Essentially, if you tell someone like, hey, you broke the contract, just give me my $50,000, there's no need for us to go to court. That's what that claim is for, saying like, hey, you didn't give me my minimum wage, so just give me the $50,000. The liquidated damages clause in this contract is $50,000. So that's like part of what he's going after. Failure to provide uninterrupted meal periods, failure to provide uninterrupted rest periods, failure to pay wages promptly upon termination, etc. All of this is in his contract.
So how does it work? Like, for example, he's saying he was not even able to really sleep, eat, or drink. This sounds like torture methods, right? So if he is telling the truth, is there something that could happen at this point with those things, especially like the lack of water, only alcohol, no food or water? That was interesting.
I think the alcohol call out is very interesting, particularly with and I've said this before, I think like on your channel, Grace, and definitely like on mine, you can put anything into a contract. Whether it's enforceable is completely different. Like I can put into the contract that, every day if I work for you, Grace, at 3 p.m., I promise to bring you a cup of tea. And if, one day I bring you the cup of tea at 3:05 p.m., technically, like I'm in breach of contract. Technically, you could sue me. Like, is that practical? Not really.
Not really. Yeah.
The nitty gritty of beverage and food service for the
Mhm.
contract is most likely not written down. It would be a huge legal red flag to write into a contract, we are only going to provide you alcohol.
Exactly. But that's the thing. Like, was he
Mhm.
reasonable to expect to have access to water and to food?
Yeah, I would say that's a reasonable expectation. And I would say one of the sinister things behind reality TV is reality TV technically counts as unscripted in
Yeah.
that varying levels, like contestant shows are technically unscripted. However, they are definitely crafted around a narrative. And that
Mhm.
narrative is built through 20 hours of filming to
Yeah.
catch tiny bits of like drama, of whatever, or gossip, of people running around naked, like whatever have you, nonsense that is on these
Mhm.
things, and then spliced together.
Yeah.
If he's claiming that, oh, you know what, you're filming for 16 hours, I've been on set, or I'm like doing all these things, I didn't get any food, whatever, most likely the production company will come back and be like, yeah, the food and the water was over here. Just because you didn't see it, that is a you problem,
Ooh.
which
Okay.
I would guess that's likely what happened.
Mhm.
These are very, to be quite frank, like toxic work environments to
Yeah.
begin with. And
Mhm.
usually when people are signing up for this, the waiver that they sign, which is separate from the contracts, usually like attached, is very long and they waive everything. They
Ooh.
waive their right to any privacy, they waive their right to certain things. Um, and that's most likely included in the waiver. Like the waiver is like probably, okay, we'll provide you 3 meals a day. 3 meals a
Mhm.
day if you're working 20 hours is not enough.
Yeah.
But people don't have any bargaining power to be like, "Wait, I did the math, like, 20 hours, like, I require more food than that." "Oh, yeah, we'll provide you food and beverage." It's probably very vague. So there probably
Yeah.
is water somewhere around. It probably was not made readily available because the producers do want people to likely be drunk.
Mhm. So, Stephanie, in your time as an entertainment lawyer, you guys, if you're just joining us, I'm here with Stephanie from Wine and Chill. She is our YouTube bestie. We love talking about the legal side of entertainment over here. I've got a link to her channel. Please make sure to go ahead and subscribe to her over there for more content. But, Steph, when you were practicing in entertainment law, did you ever see anyone go up against like a production company and win? And like, what was sort of the basis of that case, if so?
So I haven't, the one case that comes to mind, I remember, I think it was like we were around the same age. So I think it was when we were in college around then.
Mhm.
Thank you, Bunny. Um, or I'm reading the wrong one. Thank you, La Muneca. So I think was the Survivor case in like 2010, where a
Mhm.
group of contestants sued Survivor, being like, "Hey, I know I signed up for Survivor. People or most people are familiar with Survivor, where basically they just put you out into the wild, into the wilderness, and then you vote on who gets to stay in the wilderness. It is very wild. But Survivor was the original, I would say, contestant reality show that really catapulted that genre.
Mhm.
And so people were very much like, we're just getting put into the wilderness. Like, this is craziness.
Yeah.
But people sued and were like, hey, like, this is past what I signed up for. And they lost because judges very much are on the side of the company, very much like, this is the contract. So, like, we were on Survivor, Stephanie and Grace, you knew that they were just putting you outside. They're not giving you water. You have to figure this out. Like, this is a you problem. You signed up for this for whatever reason. We are not going back on it. It's very rare for people to win, particularly in the reality TV realm, because there is no expectation of care, I would say. It's not like when you go into work, there's expectation like of not being discriminated against, expectation that like you'll get your paycheck on time, expectation of these things because you're promised these things. In reality TV, all you're promised is like 15 minutes of fame and nonsense.
15 minutes of fave and nonsense. So to Bunny's point, like, does it look bad on him that he was only there for a week? Does he come across a little bit like bitter or something like that in this lawsuit?
I
Or
would say, I think when I was reading the rep from Netflix, that was their point. Then that's what they said without saying it. All they stated was, oh, well, we don't know the reason why he's suing. However, he was only on our show for 1 week, which is basically saying we know the reason why he's suing. Um,
yeah.
I think it's very interesting. Had he been on the show for an entire season and made these claims, I think they would have more veracity, which is
Yeah.
why I think he's doing the class action lawsuit. Because again, I'm not familiar with the show. So my
Mhm.
apologies about the sleeping thing earlier. I thought like maybe they're doing like the whole nine. However, if he gets someone who got all the way to the end of the show, then that would
Mhm.
have like much, much higher likelihood that this would go anywhere. But the
Okay.
likelihood of somebody who gets to the end of the reality show then literally biting the hand that feeds them is highly unlikely, because people's reasons, despite what people want to say, like they want to find love or whatever thing they want to pretend they're doing, they want to be on TV.
Yeah. They want to be on TV. They want the brand deals. They want the Instagram followers. They want it all. And they do get it, right? By
And
the
they
end of
want, maybe they want the love on the side too, but they definitely
the
want the monetary and like cultural capital that comes with being on reality TV.
1,000%. And so what comes after the claims here in this is situation?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. So I believe this was filed yesterday or the day before. I think we're pretty quick this week.
Oh,
Um,
it was announced hot off the press like that. Wow.
Yeah, I think we're pretty quick. And essentially what's going to happen is Netflix, and because Netflix is also a defendant as well as Kinetic Content, and
Mhm.
Kinetic is the production company, so they're going to file the answer. Usually in the answers they just deny everything. They're usually very boring, but sometimes you will see counterclaims. So that's when it gets kind of interesting, because then you'll get more information. But I think they're definitely going to move to dismiss this.
Mhm.
That would probably be the next step. And then on his end, him and his lawyer are basically going to try to find someone or a few people to join their class action lawsuit, because currently right now it's just him.
Okay. And so moving to dismiss is typical, right? Like that's typical, like kind of a defense situation. So it doesn't really mean that it's got a high likelihood of being dismissed.
I mean, if he doesn't get anyone else to corroborate this, I don't see why a judge would waste taxpayer money to look into this, to be honest.
So can he not go to an individual lawsuit if no one else joins, or it's like one and done? You file this class action, you're out because
He
you
could
can't.
he could amend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could amend it. But even then, like, he wouldn't win by himself, which is why I think his lawyer's strategy is, okay, we'll sue a class action. Somebody who else, like someone else who maybe like did a couple weeks, we
Yeah.
get like 4 other people that only were on the show for a couple weeks. We're like, okay, that will
Mhm.
add up. I think that's their strategy.
I have a question for you, Steph, and everybody in the chat as well. Do you guys think that the villains, the people whose like actual personal lives were turned upside down by this, might join on the class action? Like in season 1, it was Jessica. I love Jessica and I stood up for her, but like everybody hated her and like her real life really suffered. She was really bullied on social media. And then in season 2, it's Shake. Well, season 1, we also had Carlton. And Carlton, he hates Netflix and Kinetic Content for the way he was portrayed on the show. And he had a lot of meltdowns when he was doing like press runs about the show. So do you think people who are like disgruntled might hop onto this claim potentially?
So specifically how you are portrayed. So like your public image, like your right of
Yeah.
publicity is based no, that's not the yeah, I think I'm saying the word wrong right now. I'll remember in like 10 seconds.
Mhm.
Um, but that inherent right that you have when you join a reality TV show, that is always waived. So there are in almost every, I would go so far to say probably every reality TV contract has language in there that says we are allowed to edit your image. We are
Yeah.
allowed to edit your likeness. We are allowed to splice anything together. You have no ownership over any of this intellectual property. We will do it what you want. And they also let people know, like, we may portray you in a negative manner. So
Mhm.
those people, they could join if they want to, but that would preclude them from specifically claiming, like, hey, you ruined my life.
Mhm.
But that's not going to preclude them from saying, like, hey, I didn't get any lunch breaks. Or hey, I am
Yeah.
actually underpaid. They could join for like those facts, because those are
Mhm.
actual, if true, those are, I would say, like valid concerns.
Mhm. See,
If
that's
you
what I'm
waive your
thinking.
right to them, though,
Yeah.
like that's kind of where the concern is gonna, maybe you might have already contracted out of the concern.
See, like I feel like the average person would not join because, like we were mentioning earlier, they gained in other ways, you know, in like social capital
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But the people whose images suffered, they might be more inclined to like admit that they were not given adequate stuff or they were overindulged with alcohol and stuff like that. So that could be
Mhm.
quite interesting. By the way, Steph, we've got some people asking about Jocelyn's Cabaret. I forgot there is
Oh,
someone suing from that show as well, or a couple of people. I think that might actually be a real class action, right? You guys,
oh,
Ashley and
that is
like
such a. I Someone sent that to me a few months ago, and I was like, oh. I was like, the Puerto Rican princess is at it again. Like,
I know.
that might be worth covering. We have to look into it because that has, I would say, like the implications of both civil and criminal
Mhm,
elements in that there is assault that occurred,
mhm.
which is objectively wild. And there are, the civil actions. Did they need to yank that show? Did they yank it already?
Honestly, I don't know. All I know is the promo "Welcome to Jocelyn's Cat." That's it that I know. Uh, I have no
That
idea.
was
I'll have to look
great.
into it. Abu wants to know if you're going to be covering Nene suing Bravo. Actually, it kind of does look like Nene might get something because I think they moved to settlement talks. So I believe she might be walking away
Yeah.
with something at this point from Bravo.
Yeah, I've been like looking at it a little bit. I think she's gonna quietly settle as well.
Yeah.
Because
So
to be honest, I think her original objective, why she waited so long, all these years to sue, because she could have sued them forever ago and she didn't,
yeah.
was and why it looks a little wishy-washy is because I really think she wanted back on the show. Like it was her show, like she made the show.
Mhm.
And she has a lot of valid points in that the way she has been treated is not how her white counterparts have been treated on Bravo. And
Yeah.
anybody with eyes can see that.
Oh, 1,000%, 1,000%. And yeah, like you said, it's a little complicated because she kept going because maybe she wanted
Mhm.
to continue on the show. She saw it as her own, but at the same time, from an economic perspective, people have to work. So sometimes, unfortunately, you have to put up with things you don't want to, you know? So I do believe that Bravo will be paying her something. I don't think they're going to disclose what it is or how much.
Yeah.
But do you think that, like, at this point, like, people like that, like, someone who goes as public as Nene, her career is kind of ruined in the reality TV space? And is it fair if, like, she's kind of blacklisted from TV for speaking out?
I mean, that's like a great point. To be honest, I don't Hmm. I mean, maybe from working with Bravo, but I don't unless she has a clause in her contract that states unless she has a non-compete clause, which is what it would be in her contract, which she hasn't been on that show in years. So her
Mhm.
non-compete wouldn't have lasted this long. Like a
Yeah.
judge would have thrown that out anyway. She should be able to have her own show, to be honest. Because if I was like a TV executive, I would say, like, oh, look at all these ratings. Look how she has stayed relevant with no show. All these years. Nene has still been relevant. Nene is the best meme.
Yeah.
Nene is still giving looks, still giving lines, still, floundering around with in a lawsuit separately because of her now boyfriend, which is a mess.
A married
Like
boyfriend. Yeah.
Nene is great. Nene is great TV. Nene is great
Yeah.
TV. So I don't think that it would preclude her from having her own show. I
Mhm.
think having watched it play out all of these years, I feel like maybe she wanted to go back to Bravo and is sad and upset and rightfully upset that that door is closed.
Absolutely. It's really
That
sad.
that's the way it seemed like having, like, read the original complaint because a
Mhm.
lot of people are like, "Oh, why are you suing now?" Like, blah, blah, and I'm like, but there's a lot of history there, I would say. Like, for what it's worth, like, Real Houses of Atlanta was doing such good numbers, way more than all of the other,
Mhm.
franchises for
Yeah.
years.
Absolutely. And her and Andy, they seem to be genuinely friends, So for all of this, and for her to come out and start accusing him of, like, drug abuse and stuff like that, like, it's serious. This is personal
It's
between
very personal, yeah.
between
And I
them.
think people often, like, lack empathy for Nene that they give that same empathy they lack for her to other, reality TV stars, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And so what can we expect next, Stephanie? Should we kind of keep an eye out? Will you be keeping an eye out on the next kind of filings in this situation?
Yeah. We'll keep an eye out for, the motion to dismiss because I mean, I can always be wrong, of course, but
Mhm.
I don't particularly see this going very far.
Mhm. And so a motion to dismiss will most likely be met by a motion to not dismiss, to continue.
Correct. It will somebody so you file the motion to dismiss. So like most likely that's what Netflix and Kinetic will do. And then Jeremy and his team will file an opposition and then the judge would rule on that, would rule on the motion to dismiss, either grant it or deny it.
Yeah.
But unless he has better claims in this, unless he's stating something that's not in his contract, most of the things that he's listing are I would be very hard pressed to know that they're not in his contract. So a judge is most likely going to look at the contract and be like, okay, what is the reason for this? I can't help you.
Exactly. All right, you guys, you heard it here first. We had Stephanie from Wine and Chill over here to help us go through the play-by-play of the big lawsuit being launched against Kinetic Content, the production company behind Love is Blind, and Netflix, the distributor of Love is Blind. Once again, you guys, if you enjoyed our stream today, please make sure to head over to Stephanie's Wine and Chill channel for more amazing talks about the legal world, celebrity news, pop culture, celebrity legal news, of course, and personal finance. She absolutely is amazing. And yes, Nikki, I completely agree. Andrew's already been semi-open about some of his stuff, and it's been rumored for a while that he likes to go skiing. So thankfully for him, it did not damage his reputation in that batch. But because Kathy Griffith said the same thing, right? When they fell out, she said that he was like an avid skier. So
This is the first time I'm hearing that term, so it took me a second. I was like, what? And I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's what they call it. Skiing, playing in snow. So you guys, please make sure to check out Wine and Chill for more amazing news. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Keep an eye out when the motion to dismiss heads over. Maybe we'll hop back on with Stephanie and talk about that as well. We might talk about Jocelyn's Cabaret if that goes anywhere, etc., etc. You guys, take care. Thanks again, Steph, by the way, for being here.
Thank you. And congrats, Abu, on paying off your student loans.
Did Abby pay off his student loans? Yes. 2 snaps for you. My thing is so slow. I have to hop back. What did he say? Hey, Steph, I also finally paid off my student loans this month for grad school. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. Bye, you guys. It was so nice to see you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
Hello.